Welcome back to Unrigged. I'm Kirk Coburn. The tagline you've heard before, HR filters you out, founders don't. That's the whole game. Quick gut check for anyone listening. Have you ever said fractional probably doesn't work in my market, or I need a few more years before I'm ready? Today's guest is going to make those excuses harder to keep. Sam Chakraborty describes her corporate career as, and I'm quoting here, a black box of templated synergy, which we will have her unpack. She views growth through a Kafka-esque PnL lens. That's a mouthful. If you've read Kafka, you know what that means. Absurdity, bureaucracy, systems that exist to perpetuate themselves. If you haven't read Kafka, you definitely lived it. Every reorg that changed nothing, every strategy deck that said everything and meant nothing, every alignment meeting that misaligned 3 more teams. Here's what makes her different. She saw the rigged system in her mid-20s. Most of us needed a layoff at 45 to figure it out. She's building her fractional practice in India, not the US, different market, different compliance, different rules. And she calls herself fractional everything, not one function, everything. This is amazing. If she can build this in India at 25, what's your excuse? Let's get into it. Sam, welcome to Unrigged.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Very, very warm intro. And of course, here we are. And as you rightly mentioned, not US, but India. That is something which I abide by and I've been working towards. And we just finished one more fractional round of like a huddle or meet with someone with 2 people sitting in Germany. So India is also picking up pretty well, and here we are growing and going local, like globally local, with of course the fractional element towards things.
All right, before we get into the business, I want to hear about this cooking thing. You told me you optimize recipes like a go-to-market funnel, but life taught you, and I'm quoting here, you can't A/B test salt after it's in the pot.
Right.
What dish taught you that lesson the hard way?
So the cooking was strictly a metaphor. But let's look at it this way. Hey, like when you're like in your early 20s, like you're just fresh out of grad school, doing your MBA, in different part of the continent, because I moved from India to UK to pursue my MBA right after my undergrads, much unheard of, about 15 plus years ago. And over there, it was a very different ballgame. The entire wiring changed because, hey, we thought you knew everything. So I added an extra pinch of salt and then, oh my God, this tastes horrible. What am I going to do with it? How do I optimize it better? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because, you're alone. You're literally at the work front with your front foot outside, forward, and you just don't know how to optimize it better there. And something as basic as things that happen in the kitchen. I have faced it. I'm sure all of us, and you have faced it the hard way, the way once the campaign's live and there's nothing you can do to change the narrative there. Instead of bringing it down or like changing the entire dynamics. But how do you salvage a situation like that? Because over there, it's not your money, it's your client's money. And everything that is there is detrimental to me for my corporate career. And again, I'm answerable. So finding loopholes and just going by instinct. That's pretty much how I try to have this go with the flow kind of a attitude towards whatever life brought towards me, from cooking to maybe shopping or even spilling ink over a nicely pressed white shirt. Hey, it's every day, it's everywhere.
Fantastic. That's very clever. Now, you said you realized the game was rigged in your mid-20s. Quote, watching my career turn into a black box of templated synergy. Unpack that for me. What were you seeing that your peers weren't?
So you need to understand something here, folks. See, of course, geography matters, the climate, environment, everything matters. Keeping, like 4 P's of marketing aside, there's more than what meets the eye when it comes to a brand, right? Because if I look at myself as a brand, We are branded. When the moment we are born, our fingerprints are unique. That's our USP at that point. And the moment we try to templatize things for our clients, it gets very difficult because see the clients will have expectations because they have paid the money. But over here, the moment having a bureaucracy led also democratized system as we have seen it the hard way. We always told the boss is always right. But hey, does he have the know-how which I'm bringing to the table? So that's where I realized it at a much early stage because I was probably about 25 years old then. And a lot of things we went haywire in terms of running a campaign for a client. I remember that very specifically, like burning the midnight oil and trying to get everything together and free losing a few strands of hair in the process. Like stress can get to you. More than the client, it was the system which kind of got onto me. I was literally feeling burnt out, burning the midnight oil because, hey, the campaign was there and a lot of budget, a lot of money, a lot of expectations. But more than what the clients felt, my manager felt more than that. And she ensured that it was difficult for all of us, let's see our next at the guillotine. That's when I suggested an alternative way to smoothen the tension out. I was rebuked. I was told a lot of nonsensical stuff, open floor. And hey, that was the realization that self-actualization doesn't come the way it's supposed to come, like a moment of glorious enlightenment. It came at that moment at 2 a.m. in the morning on an office floor. Only 5 or 6 of us were working, and our manager is shouting at the top of her voice, saying that, hey, you're not going to do, you have to templatize it. So that's when the entire thing, the system felt rigged. And the worst was the boss is always right, so it's rigged.
So it seems that all of us have these sort of moments where strategy that we continue to hold on to was taught to
Right.
us or we learned it at critical moments. That was one of your critical moments. And how have you taken that and tell us a little bit more about how does that impact how you work with clients today?
So that was basically the last straw that broke the camel's back, if I have to be very honest. And I did have my resignation lined up in my draft, which I was planning for a few months. But that was the aha moment, as we call it in branding for me. So there I was, no job, nothing. The resignation went out, it is accepted. I served my notice, of course, I wanted to be a good Samaritan, of course, not leave the company in shackles, of course. But the biggest leap I took was not having a backup. Like just quit. What will happen in see? I don't care right now. Right now, what matters is I need to be heard. So when I went the entire notice period, the entire shimmer came down. And this was I, me, myself, and in a very introspective mode. Hey, what am I going to do now next? That's when the Eureka moment happened. That hey, whatever my learnings were at me, wherever I felt there was a problem, a bigotry, as you put it. Let's do it differently. And that's when I started branding myself better. And it's my moment to realize I'm a brand change. If it's coming from my kitty, I have something to offer there. And that's when I started to monetize myself better in terms of connecting with people across LinkedIn. Of course, LinkedIn was a must, but this is again pre-COVID. I'm talking about. I'm about 43 right now. I'm like about 43 years old right now. The 25 to 43 has been a quite long jump. And the first thing first was to understand, okay, I do a lot of things. I do this, I do that, I do that, blah, blah, blah. But where is the pivot? Where do I start and what is my lowest hanging fruit? Because I need to understand myself first before I pitch it to a client because they need to buy into my vision. So I didn't have a vintage to offer. Sorry, Kirk, if I add just one last sentence. I didn't have a vintage to offer like all the unicorns and victories and victors. But I still was me, like with whatever minimal fractional experience I had per se. And that's when the entire alignment started.
There's so much to unpack here, but one of the things that you said that's really interesting is that you're on this journey of understanding yourself. And
Yeah.
a lot of people I work with are 45 and older. You're
Right.
younger. And I think that there's barriers. In some ways, when you're older, you have deep experience of what you know, but you're also so scared to do something new, which in many ways is start your own fractional practice.
Right.
Tell me
Yeah.
about sort of that. You said you left with nothing, no backup. What scared you? And then what happened? How did you get going?
So to be told, being a human, I was scared. I was shit scared, to be very upfront. The moment the shimmer ended was the day the last day the notice period ended. The next day morning, I woke up. Okay, no 9 o'clock town halls to join, no hardware meets, nothing. What am I going to do? That's how things are. That's when the realization hit. What I wanted to do then, and I still do that now, is monetize or capitalize on my fear. Okay, I'm coming to Kirk Coburn show, the Kirk Coburn, and let's just put it that way. So obviously, a part of me did feel a little scared, for honestly, because not that I'm camera shy or I'm scared to speak about my mind or my vision,
You're
but
definitely not shy, Sam.
yeah, but again, like speaking with the OG or somebody who has actually crafted the vision, and here I am taking it forward in India and rather local, not global, but local. Like how I can be a fractional bit everywhere. But that core being revenue, that's one thing which I've learned the hard way. Now coming back to the hard way and wanting revenue is what matters here. And why everything has to align there. That was the first realization that hit me. That's the entire lowest hanging fruit concept. That, okay, I can do this. Great. But where do I start from? That is the first question. So, again, somebody who's a 45-year-old person, of course, he's wired very differently. The risk appetite is minimal. Its threshold is low, you know. But you have to start somewhere. So, talking about capitalizing on the fear, understand, okay, what are the odds? What am I going to miss out on this? Because I'm sure the mistake, and I'll not call quitting randomly and not having a backup a mistake. It was a spur of the moment, and I've capitalized on that, and I've come a long way because when I started branding and working on myself to understand my alignments better, what turns me on, what turns me off, what I want, what I don't want, I realized that, hey, you know what? My guardrails are in order. If I'm approaching a somebody, what do I want? What do I expect from the person? Or what do I want the person to perceive me as? So I had this constant narratives at the back of my mind. Hey, what can go wrong? What can go right? So once the narratives were set, it was easy for me to frame my questions better. Into reaching out to certain set of individuals to tell them, hey, you know what? I am a brand consulting. I was a brand consultant then. I'm a brand consultant person. These are the areas I worked in. I feel there's a problem in your system. They're very upfront. No sugarcoats. And let's talk. It's something as basic as a human to human, a peer-to-peer thing.
Now, Sam, this is interesting because I work with fractional executives from CTO to CFOs to chief marketing officers to marketing executives to chief revenue officers. What I found interesting is many of these executives have this imposter syndrome. They feel like they don't belong, especially when they're starting to sell their own brand and their services. You talked about this in your fears, but then in the same sentence, you talked about what do you want and what you don't want. When you're scared and you need to generate revenue, how were you disciplined? And we'll get back to this of why it's important, but how were you disciplined to also think about what you needed?
A very pertinent question, Bob, because it is not easy. The moment you start treating something like your baby, you are the biggest critique of that because you start having the imposter syndrome, as you rightly put in. And for me, before I take a product out in the market, I'll be ultra critical, Hey, I don't think this is going to work. I'll have second thoughts. But in that do or die or a fight or flight syndrome, moments like that, you have to take a leap. You see, for me, it's about setting milestones in my mind. But hey, you know what? If I reach a product or if I reach a service of this level, at least start somewhere at least. Because for me, at that moment, it was basically to start getting money to pay my bills. That was the first move here. Because as you rightly mentioned, you have dealt with or used to speak with, of course, the CTOs, CEOs, all the C level or the exec level people or the fractional level. At the moment they're starting something of their own, it is difficult because you're never really 200% convinced that, okay, is this good enough? Am I good enough? Can I do this? No. But you have to take the leap of faith somewhere, They start believing in yourself. But there's a catch here. You cannot be all complacent and cocky if you have to put the right word here. I'm sorry, like, it might be unparliamentary, but I do meet a lot of people who are very complacent. And that is my biggest challenge there because it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to unlearn and relearn. but you need to be true to yourself. Not philosophical, but again, this actually helps in maintaining that synergy, that ethos, if you want to go the long mile. If you want to play at a short-term, myopic thing, it doesn't really help. It doesn't take you a long way.
A lot of people are complacent. When I started Chief Outsiders, I found existing marketing executives that were already doing contract work. Like it was easy to find people. And then I started finding people that have never done it, but I got business for them. So it was easy for them to transition. Now
Right.
I am focused on people that have the corporate ageism. A lot of the things I talk about is if you're over 40, you're screwed. No one's going to hire you again.
Agreed.
And you have to take your career in your own hands. And so it's interesting. A lot of these people are complacent. A lot of these people are willing to get to the point where they have to sell their house because they're unwilling to start a fractional career. They're still trying to get a job. And I find it unbelievably amazing. But what I've found is that they have convinced themselves, and this is something I want to ask you about because you're in India and the UK also, but in the US, and I think it's global, but in the US, we were taught that you go get a job and the company's going to be loyal to you.
Right.
And I just interviewed a young marketing executive that got brain cancer, and his company turned their back on him and basically forced him to leave because they didn't want him to take unlimited time off, which they promised they would give him, etc. So he was forced to go fractional. But what is it about you and about the environment you're in where it's okay to go out on your own? Or was this something that you were forced to do?
I was never forced because, should be told, both my parents in India were corporate hunters. They're obviously retired. And what you rightly put, like above 40, it's difficult to get a job. I felt the same when I was like, I actually had second thoughts on taking a job in my late 20s when my first company, my first agency thanks to COVID, in 20 was tough. And I was left with no revenue, nothing. And that's when I was fractional always, but I had my own setup whereby I would come in and be there for everybody, like how a fractional person works. But of course, on my own terms. So I have that moment too. I felt that age isn't too the right way. And nobody wanted to hire me at the package I was at. They wanted me to do everything, but at a very way below the level that I should be getting. Why? Because I had a gap. It was not a gap. It was basically I was running my own show. So these are basically triggers that make you say, hey, you know what? Once you're out of the system, you cannot really go back into the system. And as for my parents, they've always had this stability in their mind. They're like a fixed job, 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. Boss is always right. You'll be loyal, you'll get paid for your loyalty. And that actually is bad because what you mentioned about this young marketing exec who were being forced to resign because the company is not was not like empathetic enough to give him or the relevant time to recuperate. It shows how bad and how bureaucratic structures are. And this is there everywhere, Kirk. It's there everywhere. Because at the end of the day, the reward revenue selling doesn't change. The numbers are still the Roman numeric we use, maybe India or US, UK, Canada, anywhere. Maybe the currency symbol is different, but at the end, it's money. So for me, it was not a necessity or a forced thing. Rather, something I've always wanted to do because I could not really see, I could not want to do, I didn't want to be templatized and forced to do something which I didn't align with. For me, my alignment is very important. And so the moment at the age of 25 to where I am right now, at the age of 43, I have come a long way and I try to do things differently in terms of ensuring that the company that I've just set up, like right now, as it's a full-fledged private limited. One very key aspect there is the fractional aspect. It comes to the team joining the company and also their health benefits. Because for me, I don't want to treat anybody as indispensable, of course, but Having said that, I want to break out of the generational or the corporate bigotry that has been on for generations now. And if not me, then who? Somebody has to bring in the change.
All right, Sam, you call yourself fractional everything, and that's different from most guests that I have on. What does it actually mean? Walk me through what you're fractional doing.
So first things first, I was a fractional CMO. I still am a marketer at my core. But when you're running a setup, you have to be a fractional of everything. Because for me, fractional is not something that I'm projecting outside to the client to handle their revenue or fix funnels like a good plumber. For me, being fractional, I play multiple roles where multiple fractional have. From being a technical person to a revenue person to a CFO to everything, because when you're running your own setup, you cannot be solo, but you need to understand what is happening, because my entire idea behind setting things up and being on my own was to ensure that whichever company, whichever brand I'm coming on board as a fractional revenue architect for, if to put it that way, I need to ensure that all the things inside the company, the system, are in sync and not in silos. And for that to happen, I have to speak everybody's lingo separately. Because the vision is the same, that the company has to grow. But there are different units who are playing a very different role to ensure that the thing is in compounding or a multiplying motion or exponential motion.
So
For me,
what
I like to look at that
services are you offering today to clients?
So for me, my core is revenue architecture. I mean, I work with my business partner very closely. His profile is end-to-end tech, AI, ML. And my profile is everything end-to-end sales, marketing, branding all together. Now, when we are offering the service to our clients, we are offering an end-to-end revenue automation and architecture by fixing the funnels and everything, along with different automation products, which we are still working for the right models right now, to solve this one problem. That is, your revenue should be in and your team should be aligned. Because I'm sure even you are reading a lot about this AI taking away jobs and so on. I'm absolutely happy and stuck where I am with AI. For me, AI is my best friend who does all my odd jobs. I want to be efficient in terms of my time management. And in 24 hours at across different time zones, I need to clock in my 7 hours sleep. So while I'm sleeping, my AI is on. And don't mind odd jobs there. When it comes to drafting emails or ensuring that my core, my strategy, my content is being neatly packaged into a proper presentation. So I look at it that way. And
So let me ask you, I love AI. In fact, I'm a product person by nature, and I built a CRM for fractional executives.
oh, wow.
And part of it was using AI. Now, I do have a software background and I can write code, but AI has made everything great for strategy people. So
Right.
for those listening that are afraid of AI, what is your advice to them?
See, it's simple. It's not going to eat up your job for sure. Let you and I assure them on. Let me assure you on that. But the moment you start treating it as your best friend, who's there, like just a click away thing, use it, tame it, make it fall in love with you, and treat it and wire it the way you want to treat it. Ensure the narrative is in place. Hey, you know what? I need a midnight chatting buddy. I feel lonely. So your AI should be able to do that to you, although it's bad. But hey, why not? Start interacting. Don't treat it like a machine learning, but rather a bot who's ready to listen to you and give you something constructive to work on. So if anybody's looking for fractional ideas to ensure that what can I do differently, try it can give you a good perspective, a second lens towards things. And for us, we do everything AI. And since you talked about your CRM and your software backing, my background is core business. My business partner is again a complete, he's not a software person, but his was more in the machine learning and electronics engineering side. So we both, our minds coming together to form one product where we keep scaling it up. So even our own internal CRM is all which we have wired together.
So how did you land your first client? And not the pretty version, the real version.
Right. So the first client happened when I quit my job and I rebranded myself better. And the first client came from a very unexpected source. Because see, when you're in a system, you like just look at the shimmer. You're like, okay, this brand is big, that brand is big. I don't want to work with lower people. Doesn't matter. I don't want to work. That's not how we function. Moment you are on your own, those brands will not look at you because they want the shimmer, the vintage. And then there are people who need support. And if you keep your differences aside and start looking at them as somebody who is capable of generating the revenue for you, giving you the money, you give them the results, go for it. Because for me, my first client was legitimately, it was an Indian client, which I'll not name the brand of the client, but if I look at it, the way the agencies would look at this client, he doesn't fit into our system, he doesn't fit into our culture. He's too basic, or rather vanguard, as we speak in French. It's too basic for my standards. But buddy, he has the money. He doesn't know the direction. So that's
How many conversations did it take? And was it someone you knew, or was it a cold outreach?
It wasn't somebody I knew, it wasn't a cold outreach. It was just like digging things up and trying to understand where all I can find clients. And I ended up on a news portal, which was run by the client, by the way. And I just felt that, hey, there's a severe lack to us, missing a gap here. Why not let me just try filling up the newsletter for him and see what I get out of it? So I just put in my email ID for his newsletter to see how the newsletter was worked in 2017 rather. And I received the first newsletter the very next day morning, and I saw, okay, the system does work. It's not broken. And then that's how the conversation started. So I showed him the reality. He was sure. And wait, this is where you can be. So do you want to do it? Do you want to I don't mind scaling you up. I'm just starting out. Hey,
how long did it take? How long did it take from first conversation to close?
He'll be told about 3-4 hours per day, every half an hour, him calling me back at the further querying and down. Because when he was scared, because obviously he was scarred by the bureaucracy of ad agencies and PR companies. Nobody would take him. Then he was like, why am I being made to do so special? Is this a joke? Is this a scam? That's what industries do to you. This fine. If you don't fit a particular persona, don't belong there.
And what did that do for you when you landed? You got the first payment from your first customer. What did that do for you? Anything, or did it give you confidence? Tell me more.
It actually gave me a broader realization. And then, you know what? I can actually look beyond the shimmer, the shine, and the brightness, and look at people who actually have the money. Because everybody deserves to get a good brand. And I can be that, because that is my USP, and that's my USP then. The people who are like outcasts here, I want you, and you want me. Because I felt like an outcast at that moment, because you don't know how it happens at anywhere in the world when you are like going for a multi-agency pitch. Everybody's like, look at me, the client is spoiled with choices and options. Over here, it's just me or another person to pitch to this one particular brand who's unheard of. And that's where my working style matters, because for me, attention to detail is very important. Like I tailor make solutions, of course, although I go by one strong master product, but what might fit you may not fit somebody else. So that's where my difference comes. And working at the grassroots level has made me understand that, hey, even in India, every region has a different dialect, different language, different tradition, different culture. So right now, I speak what 6 Indian languages, very unheard of for people of my stage. My mother tongue, of course, Hindi is the national language. And I speak a bit, like a fraction of 2-3 other languages, which for me to get out of the system and still be a part of the system. Plus, I do speak a bit of French and German, of course, I understand that. Like, I see through you. Like, that's how I look at things.
Fantastic.
And for me, that is very important to build me and build that fractional element. Hence, a fractional everything.
So you help companies with cross-border expansion.
Of course.
Tell me more about that.
So the beauty that I bring to the table, Kirk, is that I understand nuances. So if I look at the world and look at different areas, as I mentioned, I was actually working with 2 German gentlemen. So it was again him there, me here, and these guys in a different part of Germany. So what didn't change here is that the language, we were speaking in a bit of English and German. They were speaking in German and obviously replying in English because my spoken ability is not strong. But when I talk about cross-border facilitation, compliances are very important, which I bring to the table. Because once the compliances are in order, that cannot be fractional. But again, that's where my compliance know-how comes into the picture, because I do understand how a CA, CS, finance, taxes, legality, I know it all, at least enough to guide you through. And then, of course, you have a fractional legal advisor, a CFO, and a taxation person to do the rest. But the seed has to be sown somewhere, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And that's what the anti-global angle.
So for someone listening who does not do cross-border work, what's the lesson here?
The lesson here is you need to, like, when in Rome, you behave like a Roman, as simple as that. And the first things first you need to do is understand who's the target group, who's your ICP, what are you trying to sell here. Because cross-border, again, you need to understand that everybody's patterns are different. You're in the US. If I may ask, where are you from the US?
I'm in Texas.
You're in Texas. Okay. So that is Texas as Austin, Texas, or the other parts?
I'm in Dallas.
Dallas.
So just north.
Just north. If I look at Texas, there are different regions, different cultural nuances there. Vis-a-vis you go up north to California. It's there. So if I look at a US business here, if you find there are different geographical differences within your system, then why not in other parts of the world? So how you would do it differently for somebody sitting in Dallas to somebody you're trying to attract to downtown New York or Manhattan or Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a different mindset, Manhattan is a different mindset. Or even if I look at Europe, like Germany, like what I was attracted with them were they were in West Germany. And they wanted to reach out to the Eastern German people. They're a little different in terms of the mind. But what matters here is, again, you need to be receptive, you need to be open. You cannot be complacent here. That, hey, I know everything. No, you don't. I'm sure you don't even know what your neighbor's up to if you observe closely. So attention for detail, not fractional, but full on there. And then that's when your fractional element comes in better. Because those are your fundamentals.
Fantastic. Here's the thing. What Sam's describing, landing clients, building a portfolio, figuring out how to communicate with the clients, that's exactly what we work on inside the crew. And the crew is my community for corporate refugees navigating this together. One of the ahas I had is when you go out on your own, you want to be part of something. It's nice to be part of something bigger than yourself. You want to learn, you don't know everything. So we do weekly peer sessions. We share playbooks from people that actually have clients, people that get it. How are you, Sam, learning from others? And it's okay. Sometimes you just learn from clients, but how are you getting feedback and growing as a fractional executive?
Feedback is very important. Thank you for bringing that up. Because again, it's okay to not know everything. And when it comes to feedback, especially if I look at cross-border or even if I look at India or anywhere the client is, I think I know everything wrong. I don't know anything. I'm trying to help you here. So you need to be extremely low on the ego threshold about like accepting things. But again, not too low. Again, the optimal level is important here. How much notice to here? Because the client would want everything for the client. His deadline was an hour ago. That's how let's put it, because let's pay the money. But you, my friend, it's very important here to know how much to take and how much to like kindly like smile and say no to. That's also an art, because everybody behaves the same way, irrespective of the geography that the client, when they're the client's footsteps. But I personally like to streamline a little differently, because feedback is important. Implementing the feedback is equally important, but you should know your worth, you should know your value. And when the feedback becomes a free cheap labor thing, that's one angle you need to go with the line at. Again,
we spend a lot of time on pricing because when you're on your own, you underprice. Most people underprice. And so we fix that. And reset expectations with clients, which actually builds better client net promoter score when you fix it up front. So that's a really good point.
But that's a brilliant point you brought up, actually, Kirk, because again, people struggle here too, because we are known for penetrative pricing. But the moment the penetrative, you don't know how much extra to go up after the penetrating ticket of retaining the client there. So with all the instant gratifications and freebies, It's tough, honestly. What you're talking about, the different pricing strategies. And I think Hormozy, he has a mark there. But again, if you talk about it, even I wanted the hard way a long back. And of course, he aligns with my vision completely here. That do not undersell to kind of get a client on board. At least start building your cognitive work too, because it's your brain, though. This is the fraction of a thing you're putting it together. And the day you start treating yourself like a brand, you will know what price to price it at, honestly speaking, because people struggle. They don't know, okay, if I charge a few $1,000s, what if the client gets freaked out? Of course, the client will get freaked out, and it's normal. But then you cannot suddenly charge 1,000 and bring it out about 1,500. That's what your worth is? Like, seriously? Question mark? No. So you should need to have some like markups and play it very smoothly. But in an age of instant gratification, learn how to classify better.
I think that's the key to this whole podcast. You treat yourself as a brand. What a great point, Sam.
I'm sure.
All right, you referenced Kafka earlier.
Yes.
What's the most Kafka-esque moment you've had as a fractional? The absurd thing that made you think this is comedy?
Like, there have been moments where versions change on spot. Like, I have the emails documented where the person said something, and while being grilled by his manager on a call, his narrative changes 180 degrees. And I was going to lash out, but I did not. I just smiled and I said, okay, I'll get back to you on that. And that was one of the Kafkaesque moments, because this happens every day. And what happened after that was a very smooth stinker from my end, planning all of it. But yeah, I mean, I just did not want to lash out and create the dissonance there. But that was sheer comedy, sheer theatrics, and being the same movie I'm watching the 100th time. And that's
That is
sad,
so
actually.
good.
That's sad. It's a bit more called that's actually sad. Like for me, I've always felt that, make mistakes perfectly all right. Even God, whoever you're following, makes mistakes. My business partner, Shine, he tells me, developers make mistakes too. And it is perfectly all right to salvage the situation. But what makes us different, him and I, or us as a whole, is that we take ownership for our mistakes. We don't shy away. We don't use a scapegoat out there. It's so easy, right? We have the money. We can just plug in like a plug-and-play scapegoat. But that's, I think, what makes me a very Kafkaesque person, because it's absurd. But I would rather be blamed for the things I have done and take ownership vis-a-vis the things that I have not done and still get the brunt of it. But then I handle that.
So what is harder than you expected about fractional work?
To get people to understand what I do. I think when you came up with the entire concept and actually created it, I got to hear it from you where on you felt it was difficult, or rather, to try to explain things very like lucidly to them. Hey, this is what I do. Because people often say, "Oh, are you a freelancer? Oh, I do this. I think they're ready to label us." But tell me, I'm not a freelancer. Neither am I a bureaucratic agency. I'm fractional. But then to explain them fractional, for them, their mind goes back to the fractions we learned in our primary school. So I think the world still needs to learn a lot more about how this fractional thing works and probably adapt to it better.
The fractional idea came to me when I sold my first company, and I was working as really a CFO and COO for a growth company in Austin, Texas. And when it came down to the conversation with the CEO, I said, listen, we're not even sure we know each other well enough. And I don't want to come on board full time and in 3 months realize that I don't want to be here. And you don't, as CEO, want the risk. So why don't we do a 3-month engagement, and then we'll figure out. And after 3 months, it turned into a year engagement.
Right.
But it really made me realize that it's better for the CEO and the company from a risk perspective to hire people as a contractor or as a fractional. The second piece is you can't afford me full time.
Right.
And so those two concepts made it very simple for me to communicate to CEOs my value. Now, The other piece, I teach my clients, I am big on qualify hard, close softly. When I'm talking to a CEO about, I really am focused on their problem. I just talked to a CMO. They didn't get hired by a company because they didn't really understand the process. And the process is, don't treat it like a job interview. Treat it like as if you're a trusted advisor to the CEO or management team or whoever's hiring, and just focus on their problems. And your
Right.
job, your only job is to qualify whether you can help them or not. And if you treat them as valuable and you treat yourself, because you're a brand, as your time is valuable, you're not going to spend extra time doing things you shouldn't be doing. So it really became easier. And in fact, even now, talking to CEOs or whoever, you're not spending time trying to convince them to hire you. You're trying to spend time figuring out what their problem is and whether you can help them. And that has really changed the narrative around Fractional. Yes, Fractional still needs help on the marketing front end of having people realize that's an avenue for companies to do. But in terms of once you are talking to a CEO or a management team or a hiring manager, it's easy, I think.
This moment, if I just add one line here, I had this
Yes.
moment whereby I was trying to convince somebody like, why don't hire me, rather let's work on shorter contracts and leave better to the cost to company because revenues are being, you're burning revenue. They refused. They wanted somebody with a puppet and not me. But hey, that's somewhere.
All right, you're transitioning from proprietorship to Evango Group.
Evango, yes.
Evango, tell us more about that.
So Evango is basically a fractional everything job whereby we are automating the entire process of revenue architecture and leakage. And also, of course, we are diversifying to other verticals, including cross-border trading, cross-border white labeling, and also cross-border better sync-ups because with this new India-European Union bilateral trade agreement that has come up, so a lot of taxes have been like made softer or things have been off and so on and so forth. So obviously I was working out of a proprietary model and so was Shayan Bhattacharya, who's my business partner in Bangalore. He's out of a proprietary model. So we came in together because he saw the value in me and vice versa. And what we are building here is a consulting firm rather at the same fractional angle whereby we diagnose a particular thing and then we move on to the next step, not like going gung-ho with everything and anything. And we do, and I don't want to, and we don't operate as a marketing agency. For us, it's the skin in the game and a layer above the marketing agency, whereby we ensure that all the leakages, the problems, the revenue, wherever the bottlenecks are, and all are addressed. That's how we look at it. And with our global or a local mindset, we are all in for everybody and anybody. But again, filter whoever hasn't explored this fractional model yet, it would be lovely to kind of strike a synergy there.
I love having skin in the game with clients. That sets you apart from others, but also it makes it so much easier and it's the right thing to do.
Of course.
Being
See, it
aligned
saves
with
cost
your
to company and it
customer.
saves cost to the company. The same thing, the billable hours and all. If we take 3 months, we break it up into 12 weeks of diagnostics. Find the problem, fix it, and then we move on to the next.
Yeah, if you're good, you'll earn it. I love it. So what do you tell someone in corporate India who's watching this and thinking fractional doesn't work here?
Corporate India, fractional doesn't work here. Honestly speaking, let's diagnose your revenue there first and let's see if fractional works or doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, your revenue should speak for yourself. And if you see you're having 10, 15 different employees or if you're about to hire more, if that cost to company actually helps you with your leakage, great. If not, I'm just a call away. I'm there everywhere. So are you. Just check the revenue. That's all.
I love that. Check the revenue. That's a great answer. And in fact, that goes back to something we said earlier about changing the narrative around who cares about what you call me? What is your problem and can I fix it?
Like just like diagnostics at the end of the day.
All right. Most of us live on LinkedIn. What's the one thing you don't post about on LinkedIn?
My journey, rather, because there's so much to unbox from the blank box. And I really don't talk much about my past or my experiences. I'm soon catching up because, again, having said that, I cannot write a memoir on LinkedIn. But this overall podcast was a slightly different feeling here, whereby I got to speak through sense of my mind and go completely unrigged and uncensored. I just put it that way.
Where this has been fantastic, Sam. I really appreciate you being on. Where can people find you?
So I'm available on LinkedIn, and of course, Evango.com's website is also going live after this. So there are some exciting new things that are there and how we're streamlining things. And of course, LinkedIn is the best way to reach out, and check out the website. That's about it. And of course, one more line I will add is that amidst all the fractional everything's, I'm not a fractional author, I'm a full-time published author. And this year I have about 6 books coming out, which I've been working on amidst my fractional stints. So for all those who feel that, hey, you know what, like I'm doing so much, I don't have time. Here I am, like fractional actually aided way to building my passion into something I can write about.
Sam, thank you so much. I look forward to posting this and
Thank you.
watching your success, and look forward to it. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Really means a lot.
All right. If you're listening and that resonated, if you're sitting in that black box of templated synergy and you're ready to get out, here's what I want you to do. First, take the fractional readiness assessment. It's 5 minutes at thereturn.com/quiz. 5 minutes. I'll tell you where you are and what to do next. Links in the show notes. Just answer honestly. Second, if you're past the should I and into the how would I, join the crew. That's our community of corporate refugees who are actually doing this. Weekly sessions, real playbooks, people who get it because they're in it. And third, please subscribe to the show. New episode every week. Real stories from real fractionals. No motivational BS. Just process. And one more time, HR filters you out. Founders don't. That's the whole game. I'm Kirk Coburn. Thanks for listening to Unrigged.